Now, the rest of the story.
Well, here's a video thrown back to the good old days. Well, the good old days really weren't that great if you lived through them. I've thrown a lot of 5-gallon pails in my lifetime. I'm sure not as much as other people, but this is how we used to feed our feeder calves when I was growing up. From the time we put them into the steer shed or even the pole shed until the day they were hauled out on the trailer. It was 5-gallon pails out of the back of the pickup. So this is the first time we've really set it up like this, and like compared to in the past. But we actually got this easy trail set up full of corn. I got a little block, actually using a C-clamp, holding it down. At least that way I'm not trying to fill 2 buckets at once and just making a huge mess. All the corn on the ground is actually, well, we can actually say Relina had a little bit of a hand in that. So, you spill them too, and they'd drop or tip over by accident from here or there, but we're not really here to talk about that. What I'm doing is obviously getting ready to go feed calves, but compared to what we were doing when we were growing up, in the last couple of years, we've gotten to the point where we're actually putting our calves on full feed. So, to do that, you can't just fill the feeder up and give them a thumbs up and say y'all behave yourselves. That's not really how cattle work. So if you put enough grain in front of them, especially when they haven't really been built up on it or anything, and just dump out 10 buckets and wish them the best of luck, you're going to end up going back out there and having a bunch of calves with all 4 hooves up in the air, or all your calves with 4 hooves up in the air. So what you do is, like, really depending on how many calves you got and like what do you have for buckets, but I think I started off with 6. I'm up to 11 at the moment, or maybe 10 in this video, but after a few days of feeding 6 buckets, I'd add another bucket, and then after a few more days, then another bucket. Might be kind of fast, might seem kind of slow, depending on who you are and how fast you want to push them. I opted for the cautious route and taking my time getting them built up, just for that exact reason. I don't really want to, hurt ourselves by having a calf that doesn't get up anymore. So what you're looking for is, once you've gotten the calves built up enough where you go to feed them and there's actually corn left in the feed bunk the following day, you keep feeding the rate you're going. You don't back off the amount of buckets you're doing. But after they do that for a couple days, a few days, depending on your confidence level, you can go ahead and mix up your feed and fill your feeder. So we do have, I think it's a work weld. I don't know if I've even done a video on it now that I think about it. I might have to. Mom, Dad, however you want to say it. My parents bought a work weld feeder because the one that I had, that Apache that I bought, pretty much used and wore out a few years ago. It gave up. Between trying to keep the lid on it and the holes that were rusted through on it from when we got it, it was junk. So Mom and Dad ultimately ended up buying another one. They weren't planning on buying a 250 bushel capacity feeder because this thing it's long. It's meant to hold some feed. It's on wheels. I'll do a video on it. But the reason that we went with the extensive option of more feed, bigger feeder, even though with the number of calves we have, that's kind of excessive. Well, Ryan and I were telling my dad that it's not buying for where you currently are. You're buying equipment, tools and everything for where you're planning to be. And we all know full well that we want more cattle around here. And the calves that we're feeding right now, I have no desire to keep feeding the number of calves that we're feeding right now because I want to increase the number of cows we have. And this was a few days. So this is when Dad and Ryan were in Kentucky. This is the same day where I was putting the bales out. So still fighting the snow. But having a bigger feeder, it gives you more options, gives you more flexibility. because even if we have the same number of calves we have right now, where we're filling the feeder every week and a half, I guess that's for Ryan's calves, but if you're only filling it every week and a half, well, if you have weather coming or if it's planting season or hay season, if you got things coming up where you don't want to be having to worry about the steers, the feeder calves running out of feed, you can take the time to mix up another load of feed. It does not take very long for how we have ourselves set up. It's running the corn into the feeder with an auger, and then throwing in your extra goodies, your minerals, and everything else like that. We can have a load of feed mixed up in 45 minutes. And here we have the perfect example of man's best friend, because Calvin was perfectly fine and all too happy to ride in the back of the gator with me. I actually ended up putting him up front on the way back home because I felt bad for him. So didn't bother scooping the snow out of the feed bunk. Didn't have to. I call it filler. Poor man's filler. The calves will go through, they lick it up. It's snow, but really don't give you much of an issues. I mean, I actually would rather have this kind of weather versus the ice that we've had as of right now, where we got about a quarter of an inch to a half inch of ice, and it made everything else a lot trickier trying to put bales out and grain everybody. But you can see that the old feeder is gone. We'll be taking the new one out there pretty much any day now. We need room in the machine shed. We got to bring the planter back home probably within a week, I'd say. At least I'd really like to think we'll have it home in a week. And then we'll get these guys on. They are on full feed as of right now. At the time of this video that I'm talking, at least. We're actually looking more like spring. It's the end of February, and the forecast is calling for like highs in the 40s for the next 10 days. So we got to get these guys run through the chute, tag them, vaccinate them, worm them, and they'll be ready to go down the road, wheels underneath them anytime after that, which is generally going to be like late April, sometime in May. This lot generally sits open all summer, but with what we got planned and what's going on with the cattle right now, the whole cattle outlook is going to be significantly different going forward here. Albeit if I'm going to have calves of my own in the lot throughout the summer, because I'll have a fall herd and a spring herd. It's the big thing for me is taking the bulls out at specific dates, so I have dedicated times where I only have these set dates from here to here are when I'm going to have calves, and really ratchet up the amount of management that we're implementing on our cattle. So it's, you got to deal with feeding them all winter, but the cattle really aren't much of a hobby anymore. They can't be. I mean, for what I got planned for mine, they are definitely set. My cattle are currently set up to where they're going to start carrying themselves a lot better. I mean, I'm hopefully going to have 3 or 4 loads of stock trailer loads of feeders to sell every year. But I've currently overgone my video footage, so thanks for watching, guys.